with Alpida, where we use the art of storytelling to spread hope by building, empowering, educating, training, and providing safe spaces for healing. It is the Women's Month. We're celebrating women in the month of March, though I hope that you celebrate women every day and don't just wait for March to celebrate them. But I am a finalist for Miss Africa USA, and I have amazing candidates with me. And I got to meet Muka through that same pageant program, and I just loved her story and fell in love with her. And I said, there's no way that I can meet such a wonderful person and not have her here. And so we're so happy to have you here with us, Muka. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate you having me. Just like you said, it's been phenomenal getting to know everyone and getting to learn about everyone's story, and definitely I'm enjoying being part of such a powerful group of sister queens. It's been fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah.
So can you please tell us a bit more about yourself? If somebody's just tuning in right now, they don't know anything about you, how would you present yourself? Who is Muka? What is your background? Come on, we're ready to hear a bit more about you.
I'm gonna give you my 60-second elevator pitch. Right? My puppy just walked in, so that's one thing that you would also know about me. I am a dog mom. We'll start right. I love animals. I love babies. I am a nurturer. My name is Muka Chisaka, and it means wife of, and so I have a lot of that within my nature. My father is the one who named me, and he named me after my grandmother. And it's kind of a tradition in Zambian culture, which is where I'm from, for the father to name the firstborn. So I'm the first of 4 children. My father named me wife of after his grandmother. And so I've always just been, kind of a very nurturing person. I was born and raised in Zambia. We moved here in 2008 when I was about 14 years old. So all of my, here it's called elementary school. So all of my elementary school and middle school was in Zambia. And then my high school and college was here in the United States. I went to Quince Orchard High School in Gaithersburg. I graduated in 2012, and then I went to Penn State University, and I graduated there in 2016. And then I had a short little period of not going to school, and then I went back to school to get my associate's degree in marketing at the Art Institute of Washington. And so I am someone that really enjoys connecting with people, enjoys connecting with animals, all kinds of living things. I love that, bubbly energy. I am someone that really enjoys art, that really enjoys dance, but at the same time, I'm also someone that just really enjoys structure and really enjoys consistency and stability. And I try to provide that in all of my experiences and interactions with other people.
Mm-hmm.
How was that?
That was great, because I feel like you covered a lot. And I was literally going to ask him, when did you come to the United States? And there she is, boom, she just 2008, guys. But that's great. That's great. So you said you have 4 siblings? And how has that been being the firstborn?
You know how it is, the African girl child story, but even more so the added degree or the added nuance of being the firstborn in an African household that comes with its own pressure, that comes with its own kind of story, with its own adultification, things that we have to think about. And so I think that has really shaped the kind of person that I am, someone that's always wanting to take care of other people. But I've also had to learn a little bit in my older years to kind of take a step back and to let people take care of themselves, and to also just let people take care of me, So that's what it's been like. And I just, it's been great seeing my siblings grow up, because I've been able to kind of grow up around them and figure out okay, they're growing up, they don't need me to do this anymore, so I can kind of take a step back and I can grow and I can figure out what else to do with my time, because they don't need me anymore. So they have the mom, and then they have me, who's their second mom, and just no, anyone's mother, because I'm not a mom. I need to be enjoying my own life and to be young myself. So that's what it's been, that typical firstborn African child experience for sure.
Wow, okay. So can I just read, I went through your website And I feel like I got so many nice things from that. If anybody is wondering, we're going to see if we can just link it in the bio. Anybody wants to go and check it out. But here you talk about your parents, and I think you said, my father is a global public health specialist for the World Bank, and my mom is an entrepreneur, woman rights lawyer, and creative. I was like, woo, okay. But I think you also said that you draw your inspiration here. You say, I draw my inspiration from my mother and father who dedicated their lives and careers to community development and care. So can you speak to us just a bit more about growing up with such powerhouses, first of all, as your parents, and how in turn you're saying it inspired you to do the work that you do and to kind of push to be the woman that you are right now?
Absolutely. Now just thinking about it, if I could combine like my father's career and my mother's career into like one experience, that would be like my dream life and like my dream career. And growing up with such like powerhouse parents, they have always been like super advocates of education, obviously, and very, very big advocates of making sure that however they elevate themselves, they're also elevating the people around them. And so that's what I meant by they have truly dedicated themselves to being centered around community development, especially starting with like their own circles of influence. And so sure that they're able to support their families back home, making sure that they're able to like step out a little bit further into the development of our more rural communities, like our village back home, both on my mom's and on my dad's side, and people who are just always consistently communicating with some of the people in like local government, however they can create that kind of influence. And so I've always been truly, truly inspired in just seeing how other people look up to them and seeing how other people, respect them so much, and seeing how other people lean on them for advice, for support, lean on them for direction. And that's something that I've always wanted to do as well, just for the people in my own space. So they have been big pushers. I mean, you know what it's like when your parents are like pushing you to be the best that you can be, but then they're like continuing to strive and to do their own thing as well. So it's been super inspirational and definitely stressful. There's always some kind of pressure.
I was about to say, I feel like the bar is quite high. I'm like, how are you dealing with that pressure?
The bar is high and it just gets worse and worse every day. At the same time, it's like, they're also starting to learn that eventually you just kind of have to let go and let kids figure it out. One thing I will say about me is that I have put my parents through it. Just when it comes to rebelling and when it comes to being like, I want to do my own thing and I want to figure it out. Boy, oh boy, they have been through the ringer with that one. But at the end of every argument, or at the end of every disagreement, at the end of every period of them letting me figure it out, we always come to a point of okay, I see what you were saying here, I could have done it this way to avoid all of this stress. And then they're also okay, I see why you did this, because it makes more sense for you and it plays more so to your strengths, and you knew about that, as opposed to we weren't so aware because it's not our life, it's not our experience. And so I feel like it's really cool to be 28 years old and to be an adult, but to still be your parents' child. To now you can have some of these conversations of okay, I see why you said to do it that way. It makes more sense to just do it that way. Yeah, so that's kind of where we are now.
Yeah, and I feel like I don't know, maybe because we're both Africans, but just hearing from you as well, I'm just I think that's almost every African parent, where that relationship just, no matter how old you get, I don't think you ever become an adult in their eyes. You remain a baby forever, and it's hey, do this, do that. And it's working out with your parents, forming healthy relationships and healthy boundaries. despite the dedication and saying, hey, these are my healthy boundaries. So it seems like you guys have kind of worked around it and you have it figured out, which is beautiful. And as you were just talking about figuring yourself out and all of that, I want to talk just a bit about your journey. So you said that you got here in 2008 and you did your high school and college here. Can you speak to us just a bit more about that transition, how that was like for you, coming into a new country, getting into high school, new friends, new environment, new everything in a way.
Yeah.
How that shaped who you are, and maybe also if you can speak just a bit on the challenges that you faced and how you overcame those.
Absolutely. I remember when my parents told me we were moving, it actually wasn't even my parents. I used to be a swimmer and I went to a boarding school, and so I was at a swim meet. And one of my friends' mom also worked for the World Bank. And so my mom was like doing something else, talking to like some other parents. And this woman comes up to me and she's like, you must be so excited for your move. You're going to the United States. And I'm looking at this woman like she's crazy. Like, what are you talking about, lady? I have no idea what you're talking about. So I go to my mom and she's like, yeah, we're moving. We wanted to wait till you got home to tell you. Can I tell you that I cried the entire way back to school because I just was devastated at the thought of like leaving everything that I knew. And I knew, I was like, this is it. We are never coming back. This is it. And so, you know, we got here, everything was new, everything was big. There were like 6-lane highways going one direction. And I was like, how can people drive in this madness? You know, and it was like 3 months of not doing anything because it was the summertime. And then it was like, oh, now we have to like get into the school system and like we have to integrate into all of that. And there are all of these like centers that you have to go through as like an child, like all of these shots you have to get, all of these like things of them going through your like your old school records so they can figure out where to put you. And I was supposed to like be in 11th grade technically with like where I was coming from with my school and how my grades were set up, but they told me I was too young at 13 to be an 11th grader, which totally makes sense. And so I like went back to 9th grade and I was like, okay, let's start from scratch again, but like let's start there. And I just remember I didn't really like feel connected to people. The first friend that I had was Haitian, and then I met a Nigerian girl and then a Liberian girl. So like around kind of like my own culture, my own people kind of thing. And that's just kind of how it was for 4 years. Like those girls were my 4 best friends. And I didn't allow myself to like completely step outside of my comfort zone just because things felt so different. And so I think the real like overcoming and like the real transition has happened like in the recent years for real, because college had its own like experience and we'll talk about that. But like high school was pretty much just kind of like focusing on being as normal as possible and like trying to fit in. And that didn't help at all because I am wildly different and I'm figuring out like why that assimilation didn't like completely feel comfortable, which is like completely fine at this point in hindsight.
Yeah. And so now as we're moving to college, then you went to college and then you said that you experienced a few challenges and a few things that happened to you. Do you mind sharing that journey with us and walking through what you experienced with us?
Yeah. My college campus, I went to Penn State, and Penn State has this like 2-for-2 program. A lot of campuses do this 2-for-2 program. You either start at a community college and then you matriculate onto the main campus, or you start at a branch campus and then you matriculate onto the main campus. And so Penn State doesn't have community colleges, but it has these branch campuses spread out all over Pennsylvania. And so I started at a branch campus, one of the smallest ones that they have, just because it felt more comfortable to me. I have like horrible social anxiety for someone that's an extrovert, which is weird. But I went to a small community and I went to a small town and city, and I was the only I was the only African woman in that city, and 2, I was the only Black girl on my college campus. And so like imagine first semester, 9th grade, there's only one Black girl in the auditorium. I mean, not 9th grade, freshman year. There's only one Black girl in the auditorium of like hundreds and hundreds of freshmen. And this Black girl has like braids down to her butt. And it's like, it's very much giving Erykah Badu, but in central Pennsylvania and like East Bumblefuck of nowhere. And it was just very difficult assimilating because like the internal bias was so real, but it was like so ingrained to a point where it's like I can't even talk about it here because 1, it would just be incendiary, 2, I wouldn't be helping myself, and 3, like no one's going to like digest any of this. And so I just experienced like a lot of microaggressions, a lot of like, oh my gosh, can I touch your hair? Like, can I do this? Can I do that? Like this very inappropriate like cultural behavior, or like very inappropriate intercultural behavior, I would say. And I just had to kind of like grin and bear it for a very long time. But I definitely will say that I only have 1 or 2 friends that I can still, like call up and hit up and say like, hey, you want to hang out? Hey, you want to travel? Hey, you want to do whatever? To where everyone else was really just kind of like an accessory of my experience, because I could tell like, y'all don't like Black people. Y'all don't like Black people. You don't know Black people. You don't want to know anything about Black people. So we're just going to leave it like that. And if you touch me again, you're about to see me today.
Okay. Like, I'm ready for you.
Yeah.
But in the midst of all of that aggression and I guess you trying to kind of get used to your environment and integrate, you also experienced sexual assault, or should I say sexual abuse. Can you, if you feel comfortable, share that story with us and that journey with us, please?
Absolutely. And I feel like it's all wrapped up into that like cultural difference and that like cultural curiosity that white men have around Black women. So, and it's one of these situations where a lot of people assume that most rape happens with people that you don't know, or like with people that you're not familiar with. Like you're walking down the street out of nowhere and like someone jumps out of a bush and like grabs you and then takes you behind a building somewhere in a dark alley. Like that happens, yes, but more so it happens with people who you have some kind of relationship with. And so for me, that's what happened. I had started a relationship with a person who, it was just a very platonic at first because I didn't know who this person was, but they had expressed interest in me to like another friend. And this person was like walking me home after a party, and again, someone that I had spent some time with, someone that I had spent some alone time with as well. And I didn't feel threatened in any kind of way. I actually felt safe because this person had presented themselves as someone that is like trustworthy, a potential support system. It was also like a new town, a new city for me. I didn't know anyone. And obviously I was gravitating towards like the most friendly people and the most open people. And so it was that situation, and that relationship with that person ended up resulting in like sexual assault. And I wasn't able to tell anyone because of the nature of how things happen. And I also didn't feel comfortable with going to any of the authorities, or going to any of my professors or any of my faculty support systems to kind of report this, because I didn't know who would believe me. I also didn't even necessarily know what to say or how to describe what happened to me. Like, oh, I was walking home from a party, and then instead of going home, this person like forced themselves to come upstairs and like coerced all of these different things and like forced a situation that I didn't want to happen. And I wasn't ready for all of those questions, and I wasn't ready to like talk about it in that way. So it's just something that I kept with me for 4 years. And it honestly, my college experience wasn't what it was supposed to be because of that. And so, just being older now and going through therapy and understanding why I'm anxious about certain things, why I don't like being in certain like situations with people, why I don't necessarily allow myself to get close to people, because I did allow myself to get close to someone and then, tragedy struck. So just really working through those like interpersonal connections with people and really getting to a place where I feel like I can trust people again. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing, and I feel like your story is quite deep, and I think just listening to you talk about the post part of it, like, what do I do? This just happened. Where do I go to? I feel like if that had to happen to me, I also wouldn't really know what to do, because you never really sit down at home and say, hey, you know what? Tomorrow you might get raped. What is going to happen if you get raped? Or
right.
You never really imagine that in your head, such a situation ever happening to you. So I understand you being in that situation as young as you were, first of all, and just being like, who do I turn to? And then you're in a campus where there's nobody to make you really feel like you're at home.
Right.
And so I turn to, but also that it's really being proved that so many statistically that so many women take time to actually report these things, because they feel victimized all over again, going through the police station and speaking to people, and you as well saying that you don't know if people would believe you. Oh my goodness. I feel like I kind of feel your hesitation, and I'm really thinking through it and putting myself in your shoes as an African girl. I can just imagine going to my African mom and saying, hey, I just got raped, and it'll be like, okay, so what happened? And as you explain everything, it'll be like, so why did you let him walk you home, or why did you let him into your house? And so it'll be like blaming you as the victim, and why didn't you? And it's like, it's not supposed to happen despite you walking me home,
right and victim blaming is real, and it's a thing that happens out here. And just like you said, when you go to people and you tell them what happened to you, the first thought in their heads was like, well, why didn't you stop it? And in my head, I was like, well, if I could, we would not be here.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where it's like, yes, a lot of women statistically don't know how to handle this kind of assault, because like you said, there's no class on it. There's no like rape survival classes. There's no like pre and like post experience recovery. Like none of that is. And maybe that should exist. But at the same time, for it to exist, it means that we're in such a place in our society where we cannot regress from this behavior. And instead of having like how to handle rape trauma classes, I would rather we had how to not rape classes, or like how to control yourself. I would rather we come more so from a proactive place than from a preventative, or from even like a triage kind of place where we're just trying to like mask everything and not really get to the root of the problem. And so I was reading this article by a woman in South Africa about the South African government trying to create initiatives for people who are prosecuted as assault bearers, and then people who suffer from assault. And there was this thing where they talked about how the penalty for assault would be like chemical cauterization or something like that. And the woman's main point to that was that chemical cauterization isn't really a harsh penalty for someone who has assaulted someone else. And that doesn't really get to the root of the problem, because we want to get in a position of understanding why rape happens in the first place. And we want to understand that it is a crime of power, right? Yeah. It's a crime of to overtake someone by dominating them, and you exerting whatever power over that person in that moment. And so once we start dealing with the mental aspects of it, and I think that's why I'm so obsessed with mental health now, stability, both on like the preventative scale of things, like let's stop people from doing egregious things because their mental health is out of whack, and let's also help people who have experienced egregious things and that has caused their mental health to go out of whack. And so it's, I don't know, but I have this very, okay, let's just call it a higher perspective, because I had to go through a lot of forgiveness in my journey to like get over all of that anger and all of that rage. So now I like to think about anyone who has assaulted someone else, whether it be like just physical violence, whether it be verbally, whether it be sexually, whatever. Anytime someone attacks another person, why are they doing that? You know, why are they coming from a place where they want to dominate and overpower another person? And I've just been sucked into so many kind of relationship books, reading different theories about power dynamics, about energy dynamics, about mental dynamics, about different ways that people engage psychologically, just like trying to really understand. And I think the first question was, why did this person do this to me? Like, why? But then also peeling back the layers and just thinking that was not about me at all. And that was kind of like the most important thing that I had to like double down on. That attack had nothing to do with me. I was just in the wrong place at the right time kind of situation. And really, really trying to be very proactive around the only way to prevent this happening to other people, the only way to prevent this happening to anyone is to really help people feel better so that they can do better out in society. Like, it sounds simple, but we got a lot of work to do there.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, in my head, I'm just thinking like how, and I think you touched a bit just in what you've said, but walk us through the after effects. This happens, and then the next day or 2 days later, you have to go back to school and you still have to face the same person and be in the same environment. How was that like for you? How did that affect your education or your mental state, your emotional state? Physical, probably, if you had any physical effects that you saw, maybe relationships with friends that you broke off due to this, or how was that like for you throughout this whole journey? And like you talked a bit about anger and all of those things, so how did you harbor all of that, but also how did you find healing? And I think you spoke just a bit already about how you found healing, but just wanted to see if you could walk us through the after effect.
Absolutely. I was like in a daze. It was so different. Just like I woke up and I felt like my entire reality shifted, especially because that was my first sexual encounter. And so I had to like wrap my head around two things. I had to wrap my head around the fact that I had my first sexual encounter, one. Two, it was an encounter that I wasn't prepared for, didn't like prepare my mind into having this interaction, but I still didn't yet realize what it was. Like, it didn't like fully gel that it was sexual assault, honestly, until after years later, but we'll put a pin in that. And so I woke up the next morning and there was like blood on my sheets, and I just woke up and like I tried to have a normal day. So like I woke up, I saw the blood on my sheets, I put it in the laundry, and I got in the shower. I just like got ready for my day. I curled my hair, put my makeup on, and I went to class, and then actually like saw the person as I was walking to class, and like he came up to me and he hugged me like it was like everything was normal, like everything was okay. So I was just like, well, I guess everything's normal, everything's okay, and we just kind of like went on with existing. And then I saw this person again, and I told my friends about it, but I told them that I had just lost my virginity, but I didn't like go into the details, and I didn't like explain what happened. And that was pretty much like the end of that conversation. But continuing to interact with this person, no one knew what happened. I didn't even really know what happened. And then you have like this weird like Stockholm relationship thing with the person who you had this weird interaction with, and like he always kept wanting to talk to me. He always kept like wanting to repeat the situation, of which it did happen one more time, but again, it was in a space where the second time I don't even remember it happening. Again, I just woke up to a bed that had like bloody sheets, and I was sore, and I was like, the second time it happened, that's when I was like, okay, something is wrong. Something is not right. And then again, didn't say anything about it the second time it happened, just like kept going through the motions. And then I did a little bit more to like distance myself away from this person. And I told one of my friends like, hey, this thing happened. I don't want to be around this person. Like whenever you see him, let me know so that I don't have to be there. If you ever see us like in the same party, in the same space, like let me know so we can leave. And she was a rider. She definitely rode hard. And so I definitely do appreciate her for that. Just, it shifted my reality. And I remember a few years later, I was taking a shower, and this is what they mean by like PTSD and flashbacks. I was taking a shower, and I don't even know what happened, if I was like listening to a song, but I immediately had like a flashback of like waking up to bloody sheets. And for some reason, like everything just stopped. And I had like the worst panic attack. Like I just literally dropped to the shower floor. The water was still hitting my head, and I just like bawled crying. And that's when I realized that one, I had flashbacks before, because I would just like remember these like weird memories that didn't necessarily make sense, but like they left me feeling like, whoa. Either like they left me feeling really scared, or they left me feeling very much like confused and disoriented and a little anxious, but I didn't know what was going on. It just happened to happen in such a way this time that it was like, oh no, I remember that memory, and I remember that I put that memory somewhere and I locked it away. Yes. But that's what happens when you lock memories away and you don't process them. They come back and they manifest in different ways. And like you said about different relationships, I have burnt bridges, I have incinerated relationships. I have been the toxic person in relationships, you know, just to realize that I'm a toxic person in relationships because I haven't done my healing. And I've also realized that there are some people who, because they weren't open to understanding me and they were persistent in their desire to misunderstand me, it created a situation where I just realized like, oh, as much as I want to be friends with this person, it is not the right time right now. Because anytime that I'm triggered, or anytime that I blow up, or anytime that I have a reaction, they don't respond and they don't understand in a way that helps either of us. And I'm also a little bit too reactive to this person. So there is something that is happening with me affecting them negatively and with them affecting me negatively. So it's just best to like not have this relationship anymore right now. Who knows what happens in the future, but just it's not healthy right now. So I have a very healthy understanding of what is a positive relationship versus what is a negative relationship. And also just in my romantic spaces now, I have a very clear picture of what is healthy, what is unhealthy, because I've had different types of relationship after that assault. I had, you know, very negative relationships that affected me in a way that was negative as well, that caused their own trauma. I've had really good relationships that I wasn't able to responsibly handle. And just having a combination of those things, it's like, okay, I know how to not mess up in ways that can keep me back, but I also know not to allow other people to hurt me in ways that can keep me back. So it's been a very interesting learning period by breaking a lot of things. That's something my boss said to me earlier today, actually. I'd rather you go out and break a whole bunch of stuff and figure it out than sit and do nothing and like have no next steps. You know what I mean? So I very much just, I took I'm gonna break a lot of things approach to life, because I knew, I was like, one, I don't want to be stuck feeling like this or being this way. So I need to experience life and make a lot of mistakes, because that's the only way for me to get through this, because I don't have the answers. No one around me has the answers. No one is trying to help. So we about to just break things and see what happens on the other side.
Oh my goodness. I this is so rich. This is a very rich conversation. But I think when you're just talking about how you handled everything and how those memories were locked up, I think that was a way of you just coping, like a coping mechanism. And it's like, this is how I'm coping, and this is how we're moving forward. And there it goes hitting you. Because I mean, like you said, it's not a healthy coping mechanism. It's not healthy to keep these things locked up and stuff. But I definitely see. But I love how intentional you are about making sure you have the right people in your environment to say, hey, if this happens or this is happening and this is, so you're putting kind of like things around you to help you grow, to help you challenge yourself, and to also like help you deal with and cope with what you're going through. So I love to hear that. And in what you said, I want to see if I can read just another part of your website, because I was reading and there were so many nice things.
You're awesome.
Let me see. You say here, I believe a stronger Africa starts with a strong sense of self. I believe that our growth and evolution as a global community begins with mental, emotional, and spiritual strength. This strength is cultivated and exercised in valuable and open experiences with others. I just love that. And I wanted to see if you can talk to us just a bit about how you came to your own realization of self. Through all that you went through, how was that healing process like? And to coming to this point where you're saying, hey, I'm representing Zambia and Miss Africa USA. You must have a beautiful understanding of who you are, a great vision of yourself or understanding of your identity. So just walk us through that whole evolution and coming to the realization of who you are.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you saying that. I'm still figuring myself out. That's like, let me disclaim my answer with that. Still much figuring myself out, and this pageant is part of the process. I don't know if you've ever heard this sentiment where it's like fake it till you make it, right? So I like to have these like big ideals or these big role models, and I like to say, okay, I'm not there yet, but how can I get myself to that point? And very I have been telling everyone that will listen that Jackie Aina is like my spirit animal. I don't know if you know, the queen of like makeup, the queen of like how to makeup tutorials like that. You should look her up after this. She lives a life of luxury, and like she lives a life of opulence, and she knows who she is. She knows what she likes. She plays to those strengths, and she doesn't allow anyone to make her feel as though what she's doing is too much. And so I've gotten into this space of just like, I don't know what I'm doing. And so to make myself comfortable and to make everyone else comfortable, I'm going to be as overly communicative as possible. So more people know about my story than the people that need to know about my story, if that makes sense. And I do this because when I walk into certain spaces and you don't know that I have PTSD and something sets me off, you're going to look at me like I'm crazy, and I'm going to look at you like you're crazy, and then it's just going to be two crazy people looking at each other, and that helps no one. So the best thing for me to do in my work situations, in my collaborative situations, is I disclaim like, hey, I am a mental health like beacon walking over here. You know what I mean? Please be sensitive around how you talk. Please be sensitive around the way that you like position yourself around my body. So like, don't stand too close. And if you are going to stand too close, like face me, like don't come up behind me, don't be on my side. Like just being as open as possible so people don't set me off, and so I also don't set other people off by being uncomfortable. Because I've noticed if I walk into a space and I'm not comfortable, for some reason, for whatever reason, it shifts the energy in the whole room. And I don't know why. Like, I don't know why my energy center needs to be the cadence for whatever rooms I walk in, but for some reason, God has given me the ability to be able to like amplify rooms or to take away from rooms, literally depending on my mood. And I think to know and to understand that, and you have the same magnetic, power too. And to know that and to understand that, it's like, okay, I have to be more responsible about the energy that I'm letting out, the energy that I'm taking in. And I have to be like really ferociously, like possessively conservative around my self-care. Like if I don't put that first, then everything goes to the wayside. So I've had to learn like a certain degree of selfishness which has been super hard being the firstborn in an African household. And so it's just, I have a clear vision of who I want to be, and I know I'm not there yet. So everything I do is very much trying to create the future in the now. And I've learned that in all of my healing, that focusing on the past will never help me to create the future that I want. So as many times as I want to like harp on what happened in the past, as many times as I might want to cry about it, and that's okay, I can cry, I just can't continue to live in that past identity. It's a part of my story, but it's not part of my identity. And so I more so like to think of myself in the moment as an open book, and then I look at my future self and say, that's what we're working towards. It's not there right now, but we're getting there, and we're creating the foundation and the building blocks for that. Yeah.
And we don't have so much time, but I just love what you're saying, and how you said that I'm a work in progress just reminds me of Michelle Obama. And I think she's one of those women who brought who brought to words, or gave us the word for the evolution or our lives in general, when she said becoming, we are constantly becoming somebody, a different version of ourselves, either good or bad, depending on what you're feeding yourself, that is. So just you saying, hey, I'm still a work in progress, is that I'm still becoming a better Muka, I'm still becoming, and I'm still reaching for higher goals. And I love that you have those higher goals for yourself. And just you talking about looking ahead, I think we're going to look ahead with you and ask you about your journey with Miss Africa USA. Why did you decide to participate in Miss Africa USA? Is this your first pageant? And what is your platform in Miss Africa USA, your social platform?
Nice. So this actually is not my first pageant. I used to compete in pageants when I was younger, and I was actually Miss Gaithersburg in 2009. And I went to LA, and I had like a whole nationals experience. Like we went to Disneyland and like did the whole thing. So that was fun. And it's great to bring that experience back around full circle. I wanted to participate in this pageant because I needed something to help me nudge into like the next phase of my life. I was looking at everything around me, and I just saw, what can I do to get myself to the next level of my life? I love where my career is. I love where I'm positioned right now, just as far as being able to work and collaborate with other people and being comfortable in my job. But if I'm looking at like the rest of my life and how I want Muka to be, and how I want Muka's brand to be, and like how I want to connect with the world, and how I want to like bring in like my love of Zambia and like my love of tourism, but also like my love of other African countries, and like how do I bring in this like public health aspect. But so I was thinking, like, what is the best way to bring all of the parts of me together, and what is the best way to allow every single part of me to thrive? My business mind, my creative mind, the philanthropy, the humanitarianism, how can all of that survive as one person? And I was like, pageant. I was like, I need a pageant. And it's like, I started looking for this pageant 3 years ago. I have been waiting for Miss Africa USA for 3 years. Around like when COVID started, I was like, I need either like Miss Africa USA or like whatever pageant exists in the United States for Africans or for African delegates. I even went back to Zambia, and I was like, when are we doing Miss Zambia? Because I just know I need a pageant. So like, someone help me find a pageant so I can put all of this together in one platform. And so, Miss Africa USA came around. I was actually going through my emails, and I saw that they made the announcement for candidates to register. And I was like,
okay, you were already on the email list. You were ready.
When I think I had registered a few years prior, but I think that's when COVID started to hit and things started to close down, or maybe like a few years before, when it just wasn't open pageant season. But I sent a few email inquiries to a few different like pageant organizations, and Miss Africa USA emailed back. They were like, okay, registration is open. If you want to go ahead and like send in your application, you have an invitation. And I was like, Perfect. Let's do it. And so, ooh, do you see these?
Yes.
These are my animals. Oh, give me 2 seconds. Oh my
All
God.
right.
Ready? Get down. Get down. Get down. And stay down. Okay.
They want to be part of this. They want to be famous.
Double down. Get down, Baba. Get down. You're gonna make me be a black mom in front of all of these people. But my social platform, that's crazy. My social platform again wraps into that. I think the biggest part of it for me is public health amplification, because once you connect public health as the center of people's development, as the center of community development, I think you're able to hit a lot of different things, just like we talked about at the virtual conference, you know, emotional health, mental health, physical health. When you put public health at the center of everything, you kind of connect the dots to making sure that people have support with their mental health, with their physical health, with their economic health, with their social health, with their physical health, all of these different things. And so my platform basically centers around public health development and community development, focusing on the individual. As much as we can institutionally target communities, I want to hyper target the individual in helping them develop in the way that helps them be successful. So instead of following a template for everyone, and you can follow systems, of course, but making sure that we are focusing on the individual to help them understand what makes them thrive. How do I function as an optimal person? What do I need to keep my mental health positive? What do I need to keep my physical health top tier? What does my version of success look like? You know, like all of these personal developments that we have access to here in the US, it's just literally about sharing those systems and sharing all of that access to support and development and making it available for people in Africa, but also for Africans around the diaspora who might not have access to it, and also just extending that into the African American community, because that's us too, you know?
Yes. And we couldn't talk about so many things because I was gonna be like, let's talk about stigmas in the African community. Let's talk about this and therapy, and there's a lot. Yes, that's what I'm like, there's a lot we can dig into. So maybe like next week when we meet, we're just gonna have maybe a live session or just a personal conversation and hit it off and look for ways to collaborate. But
you know, we have like 3 whole days together, so it's gonna be fantastic.
We might get deep, so there might see zombies on the stage on Saturday.
Wait, there's gonna be a lot of coffee this weekend. I mean, next week.
So as we try to wrap up, I think I just wanted to ask, should I say two more questions? The first one would be, as you're now kind of, should I say, feeling comfortable in yourself, in your story, and sharing that with the world and trying to empower others with your story and your programming and your vision, how do your parents, I guess, on their end, how was it for them to kind of get to know everything you've been through and to see the woman that you are now? Because I think, just as you were talking as well, probably we didn't even mention that you are a career woman, and you guys, she does a lot, okay? She has so many hats on, so it's hard to kind of focus on everything. But can you walk us through that for a while?
Yeah, of course. And it's funny because I don't think I've had like the full breadth, extensive conversation with my parents about what happened. It's just uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for them. It's uncomfortable for me. There's the discussion of like, this happened and it's affected my mental health in such a way. And if you see me screaming and acting like a crazy person in this house, I don't want nobody to say nothing. Like, that's basically the conversation. But they have seen me, like struggle with depression. My mom has like come down to my room or like come to my apartments whenever I haven't been, because I've been unresponsive or like I don't get out of bed. They've seen me have panic attacks. They've seen me be attacked by flashbacks, all of these different things. And they've also seen me do extremely well, you know, but they've also seen me like crash again. So they've been through the ups and downs with me, and they've also seen how now things are becoming a little bit more consistent as far as I have more positive days than I have negative days. And they've also had to learn a lot about mental health. Like they had to really learn a lot about mental health. They have had to learn a lot about different interventions. I was able to see that even though my dad is a public health specialist and he works for one of the biggest institutions, one of the biggest global institutions in the world, he still has things to learn about mental health and public health. The World Bank in and of itself has a lot to learn about mental health and public health. And so I think in dealing with my parents, I've seen an opportunity for conversation and for growth, not just with them, but it's like, okay, God is basically trying to help me create a template for how these conversations not should go, but how they could go. Other women across the world having difficult conversations with their families about sexual assault. Other young African women having very difficult conversations with their families about sexual assault, who will unfortunately fall into victim blaming. So how do they also address all of that while they are also still trying to process and heal and figure out their own thing? And so, you know, it's been years of conversations, but I think the pageant stage is going to be the first time that they see me like directly address it, but then also like positively spin it to be able to help people. One thing my mom always does say though is like, I've seen you struggle, like with the mental health part, like she said it multiple times, like I've seen you go through it. Like I've seen you struggle, but you always come out. And she always says that I am destined and positioned to like help someone. And my dad is also speaking blessings over my life. And that's one thing I don't play when it comes to my parents speaking over my life, because everything that they always happens no matter what. So when my parents speak over my life, I'm like, God wanted it. That was the plan. So that's what we're going to do. So they've been super, super supportive and very, very open to learning, which is very impressive for African parents who are stuck in their own ways and who are pillars of the community, because they usually have all the answers. But in this, they quite quickly realized that they had zero answers and that the only person they could lean on for information about me was me. Yeah,
which is different, right?
Very different.
So if anybody's listening to us right now, guys, this topic is very deep and we're so sorry we can only cover an hour or so of it. We'll see if we can get a part 2, if we can get her in for part 2. We're doing this right after she literally just came from work, and so we're really grateful. But if anybody's listening right
you
now,
also came from work. We're all career women juggling, doing all the things.
Right. But what word of advice would you give anybody who's listening to you right now? And then word of advice, but also where can somebody who's probably experiencing the same thing as you're going through something, where can they seek help? Let's start with where can they seek help, and then a word of advice or encouragement.
This is going to sound very counterintuitive to everything that we've just said, especially as Black women in America. Going to the police is never like the first thing that you think of. Or maybe you think about it, but you think of all of the other reasons why Black people in the police haven't historically been in the best of partnerships. And so, to put it politely. And so the first place that I would call is 911, but don't ask for the police, ask for an ambulance. Ask for an ambulance to take you to the closest emergency room. Why you want to go to the emergency room is you want to, and this is going to feel weird, but I'm directly talking to anyone who's experienced sexual assault recently, or for some reason, if this happens to you, God forbid, but don't take a shower, don't clean yourself off, because you are evidence. Your body is evidence. If you can, call 911 and ask for an ambulance to take you to the closest emergency room. Most likely a police car and an ambulance will show up so that the police can just ask you a few questions. But the ambulance is the one that will take you to the emergency room so that the nurses can collect samples, they can put them in a rape kit, they can log them with the date, your name, your information, and that can be taken over to the police so they can start an investigation. I think that's the best place to start, because you want to give yourself as much legal support and accountability from the start as you possibly can. And then following through at the hospital, they should be able to give you additional resources in the emergency room. One thing I will say about nurses is that most nurses are supportive. Most nurses, 9 out of 10, because they have training in this, they won't position you around victim blaming. They won't ask you questions that aren't relevant to making sure you get the help that you need. And going to the hospital, you don't have to tell your parents, you don't have to tell anyone that you are not comfortable with telling. But I would say making sure that you get to the emergency room, not just to have these samples collected, but to also just make sure that you're okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Just to okay. Yeah, just call 911 and ask for an ambulance. Tell them you want to go to the emergency room. And that's the first place to get help. And I want people to get legal help. But if you have a friend that you can call, perfect. But just make sure after you call your friend, you call 911, because your friend might be of calling 911. But if they do, that's perfect. Get whoever you trust to come with you. If there's no one that you trust, you are strong enough to take care of yourself. That is my part one of my advice, is nothing happens to people that they aren't prepared to take on and accept. And I won't even come from like a religious place with this, because I know there's a saying that, you know, God doesn't put anything on our plate that we are not able to handle. You know, God will not give you a crown of thorns if you weren't meant to wear it and you weren't meant to hold your head up high wearing it. So I will say that no matter how abysmal and dark that it feels, it does get better, and you got this. You just have to go through the motions. It's hard and it won't be easy, but at the same time, no truly successful person has gotten to the point that they are in without experiencing some kind of adversity. So do what you can to be as well and as strong as possible. Heal in the way that you need to heal, but just know that you got this, because sometimes you can feel so low and so injured in the spirit that you don't want to continue. And I've also experienced, you know, like thoughts of suicide, wanting to take my own life, attempting to do so. And I've always healed from those experiences by remembering that I am strong enough to handle this, and that this moment won't last. There are other things to look forward to, which is why thinking ahead is so important. You know, having a self-sustained goal and vision that you can always ground yourself around is so important, because the moment doesn't last forever.
Yeah. Oh, the moment doesn't last forever. That's beautiful. So, how can people get hold of you? If somebody wants to stay in touch with you, get hold of you, shout out to you, work with you, partner with you, how can people get stay in touch with you? How can people get hold of you?
Absolutely. Best place to get a hold of me is probably through my website, mukachisaka.com. All of my social media is also associated with that name. So Muka Chisaka on my Instagram, Muka Chisaka on Twitter, although I don't tweet as much. And when I do tweet, it's like very random. I have like very random ADHD thoughts, and that's usually what I spill over into the Twitter world. But Muka Chisaka, if you just type that into Google, you should literally like propagate whatever it is you need from me. My email is also attached to my website. I also have a contact form on my website, and I'll send you all of that information, and we can like plug it into the bio. But you know, I'm a marketing person, so it's very easy to connect with me because I've integrated for people to be able to connect with me. My cell phone number is on my website, right in like the header. So literally, I tell people if you want to talk to me, you can talk to me. If you want to reach out, you can reach out. I tell women, people all of the time, I am also someone you can talk to if you need someone to talk to, because I know it gets bad sometimes. You just need someone to bounce off of, and maybe you need someone to help you figure out a next step. So I'm always open, and I tell people that all of the time. DM, call, text. If I'm not available, I will let you know when I am, and we will definitely make it happen.
Oh, thank you so much, Muka. I wish we had more time. We're so grateful that you came and joined us for this session. We've taken a lot and learned a lot, and it's just been great getting to know you, your story, and then how you're using your story for good and using it on this big platform as Miss Africa USA and sharing it with the world. I'd just like to encourage everybody, if you felt like this was very encouraging for you, please share it with anybody you think needs to hear this video and this message. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. And from us here, it is goodbye for now. Thank you so much.